From KVUE News in Austin, you're watching Texas This Week with Ashley Goodo.
Good morning and thank you for watching Texas This Week. Early voting in the primary runoff elections starts tomorrow. Democrats have some key races on the ballot, including the runoff for Attorney General. Back in March, State Senator Nathan Johnson from Dallas was close to clinching the party's nomination, getting 48% of the vote in a three-man race. He's facing off against former Galveston Mayor Attorney Joe Jaworski, who ended the night with 26% of the vote. This morning, we are bringing you interviews with both candidates as they make their case to voters. We start with Jaworski. You know, heading to this May runoff election, what would you say is the biggest difference between you and your opponent in this race?
Well, the runoff has accentuated our differences. I am the certified progressive candidate with a background as a former mayor. So I come from local government, not the deal-making Texas Senate where Dan Patrick has infected everybody with his deal-making, even the Democrats, I'm afraid. And I'm also a 35-year trial lawyer, and people are now thinking more in terms of what lawyer can we get to be the Attorney General for 32 million Texans. And I will tell you, Ashley, of the four men standing, the two Republicans and the two Democrats, I am the one with the greatest trial experience. And so I also want to say that this is a family affair. This is the Democratic primary runoff. Every voter is going to be intentional, and I think that favors me to be the nominee come May 26th.
There's a lot of conversation among Republicans right now about an effort and, a desire to want to challenge the Supreme Court ruling that said basically Texas and therefore other states have to fund public education for for children who come here regardless of their immigration status. Obviously talking about Playa versus Doe. Tell me your thoughts on, this particular conversation that's happening, and if you are elected Attorney General, how you're going to navigate that.
You're right, Ashley. That's Playa versus Doe, a 1982 United States Supreme Court decision. And it's good policy that children, regardless of their immigration or documentation status, should be educated. First off, over my dead body, they're going to change that. And so I think it's really important that voters know that I, Joe Jaworski, will stand firm and defend that excellent precedent. I know the Supreme Court these days can just go ahead and change things just because they feel like it, but I don't intend to be part of that. And I do think that there are great policy reasons why even Republicans should want every young person educated. And Texas, of course, being one of the larger and largest in population states, just behind California, and soon that may change, Ashley. But we are leaders. Everyone knows that when school books are made for Texas public school systems, they often find their way into other states just through equity of scale. And so we ought to be a leader on education. And I call on Congress, Ashley, while you're at it, to do something, finally get off the couch and repair our broken immigration system. Immigration is a wonderful American value, and Congress ought to treat it that way.
When we look back to March and voter turnout, the response from voters, you came in second in this race. Senator Johnson is confident that he's going to win on May 26th and that he can win this election outright. I really want you to give our voters some final thoughts about why they should elect you over him, your strategy for winning in May.
Well, first off, 52% of all voters on March 3rd voted for someone other than Senator Johnson. And he's acting as if the election's already over. And, that's his choice. I, on the other hand, am racing toward the finish line. And I think that this family affair, as I call it, this Democratic primary runoff, favors the progressive candidate, which clearly is myself. I don't even think Senator Johnson contests that notion. But the fact is, a Democrat needs to be a fighter, not a deal maker. I am afraid that Senator Johnson comes from the world of Dan Patrick's Senate, where deals are made on the other side of the barbed wire fence. And Senator Johnson, unfortunately, has a pretty rough record from even the most recent legislative session, banning pride flags, voting to limit SNAP benefits, voting to suppress free speech in the Texas Campus Security Act, which was found unconstitutional by an Austin federal judge, and he voted to put Proposition 16 on the November 2025 ballot. Ashley, that's the proposition that clarified you had to be an American citizen to vote. Well, we knew that already. And so the question voters need to ask is, why is Senator Johnson, in his capacity as a senator, giving oxygen to the MAGA agenda? Well, look, there's only so much damage you can do as one of 31 senators. But when you're the Attorney General, you stand alone. And so voters need to be very careful to elect a local experienced official like myself, a full-time lawyer. I'm the only one of the 4 right now standing to run for Attorney General that is a full-time lawyer, and a progressive.
Heading to the May runoff election, what do you want folks to know about the main difference between you and your opponent in this race?
I think you absolutely are going to need your best candidate in November. There's a fantastic opportunity for a Democrat to take multiple statewide offices, but the Attorney General's office in particular is critically important to the whole country right now. I do have a track record of beating incumbent right-wing Republicans. That's what I'm going to be going up against in November. I think put your trust in somebody you know can win the race. And then secondly, who is going to do a good job in office? And I think running the Attorney General's office the way it has to be run is going to require political skills honed over time. The Attorney General's office has been kind of hyper-partisanized, and we want to get rid of that. But it will always operate in a very political environment. And to really be effective, you're going to have to understand that environment. And 8 years of serving in the Texas legislature, of fighting with Republicans, of working with Republicans, of figuring out, when's time to throw a punch, when's time to lend a hand. That kind of stuff comes through experience. So go with somebody who can win the election and has the experience to deliver while they're in office.
You say it's become a politicized office. What do you feel like it should be focusing on, the Attorney General of Texas?
The Constitution charges it with 2 basic things. You represent the state, the interests of the state, and secondly, you're policing corporations, and this is in the Constitution, to make sure they're not exceeding their powers. And in modern times, what it means for corporations to exceed their powers is violating state and federal antitrust laws, violating consumer protection laws, taking control of the levers of government, which is called corruption. The Attorney General's office should be paying attention to those kinds of things, because that's the place where you stop trusting your own government, you stop trusting business, and business can take advantage of you if there's not somebody in there enforcing the rules. That kind of work has been done under every Attorney General, including even in Paxton's office sometimes, but when you're running a political theater, you don't have the resources to do the job that you're supposed to do. I plan on doing those things, making sure people's rights are protected, that they're not scammed, that their data is not being harvested, and then working with district attorneys to make sure that streets are safe. Not working against district attorneys like Ken Paxton is doing, but working with them to use the massive resources and expertise that the Attorney General's office has. And then finally, rooting out political corruption. Don't participate in it, get rid of it. All of those things are central to the office. It's part of our tradition. It's part of the constitutional charge. It's not being done. It is what's going to get done when I'm in office.
There's a conversation happening now, and one of the Republican opponents in this race has made this a priority, and that's talking about whether or not Texas and other states will challenge a Supreme Court decision when it comes to educating immigrant children. If you are the Attorney General of Texas, what's your take on that fight that we see bubbling up?
My take is that those people have a misunderstanding of what the Attorney General's office is for. The state Attorney General's office is not supposed to be a national battering ram to go back and hunt through Supreme Court precedent and say, my voting base doesn't like this, therefore I'm going to lead the charge against it. There will be private litigation challenging Supreme Court holdings across the spectrum. I will take a position on behalf of the state of Texas, as the Attorney General on the state of Texas, that upholds and adheres with the Constitution. We all have our bent, We all have an ideology, but I don't think the Attorney General's office is supposed to be an ideological battering ram. We've got a child support system that we have to administer through the Attorney General's office. We have environmental regulations that make sure our kids don't miss school because the air is so dirty that they have asthma and their parents get fired when they have to leave work to pick them up. The Attorney General has a role to play in all of that. We're not supposed to be going to try to invalidate Plyler versus Doe, which is the Supreme Court precedent that says the state of Texas and every other state has to provide a free public education to the students of undocumented immigrants, the same as they have to for American citizen children. That's a policy of the state that has been adhered to and respected and benefited this state for a generation. Republican and Democrat legislatures have agreed that that's not only the law, it's good policy. Why would you take the office, stop doing what you're supposed to be doing, and go contrary to established Supreme Court law that's also bad policy? I think they are misunderstanding the job, and I wholly disagree with their approach.
Final thoughts for our viewers on why they should elect you on May 26th?
Because Texas has so many advantages right now. I feel like we have an obligation to be a great state, to lead the nation in all sorts of things, culturally, scientifically, educationally. There's no reason we should not be, everyone says number one, number one. I mean, number one, how about we just take a noble leadership position? We should. We have the resources. We have those advantages. I don't want to see it squandered, and I don't think Texans want to see it squandered. They should vote for me in this election because I hope they'll see in me a leader that can make sure that government is working well for them. That's what we need right now. And I think people are hungry to believe that the Attorney General's office is on their side. At the end of this campaign, I think they're going to know that I am on their side and that whoever comes out of the Republican primary, they are representing the special interest of a right-wing think tank in Washington, D.C., and that's not representing Texas, and it's not realizing our potential as a people and as a state.
Democrats aren't the only ones deciding who will be on the ballot for Attorney General in November. Republicans are deciding between State Senator Mays Middleton and Austin area Congressman Chip Roy. Remember, early voting starts tomorrow, May 18th, and runs through Friday, May 22nd. It is only 1 week of early voting in the runoff. Election Day is May 26th. Vote Texas. That's Texas This Week.